imagine being inside of there, wherever you look, you feel like you're literally part of the story and you're inside the story. You're not only seeing, but you're feeling. You're feeling with your body, whether it's the flying or motion. So imagine flying on the back of a dragon and feeling the wind in your face and smelling the smell of the pine forest that you're flying over. These kind of
Incredible.
things just add to a much deeper level of immersion, which I think is very exciting. Because ultimately, a lot of storytelling is about vicariously living that experience, through the character's own experience.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders, and today we're going to be talking about media, entertainment, and different kind of experiences than we're used to. Meet Jeffrey Travis, the CEO of Positron. Jeffrey is an entrepreneur, filmmaker, and engineer. He's the founder of Positron, where he leads a team that is building the future of immersive cinemas with Voyager, the world's first full-motion chair for cinematic VR. He has worked closely with studios such as Universal, Dreamworks, and Disney, and companies such as Intel, Verizon, and Walmart to integrate VR content into multisensory experiences for audiences around the globe. Jeffrey is passionate about elevating storytelling through VR and AR and immersive technologies. Jeffrey Travis, how are you? Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. Excited to be on the podcast with you.
I'm really excited to have you here. I have some really, interesting stories that I've been hearing over these, different episodes. And I get to dive deep into these different industries and verticals. And one of the things that I just love most is when I get to talk to somebody that is working on something so cool and so, futuristic that I can just picture myself using the product and seeing my nieces as they grow up using it. And so today you're the CEO of Positron, and you're rethinking the way that we get entertainment with virtual reality in a cinema setting. And so I'm going to let you describe it a little bit better than I can. But with that, I'd also love to learn a little bit about you. So Jeffrey, tell me a little bit about Positron, and then I'd like to go back and hear about your own journey and how you ended up working in this world.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to talk about that. So our company Positron is building the platform for what we call the future of cinemas, immersive cinemas. We're very focused on virtual reality at the moment. We think that VR, AR, XR is the next medium in terms of how we will be consuming all kinds of entertainment. Movies for the last 100 plus years have been shown on flat screens, and they're going to continue to be doing that for hundreds of years, just the way that live theater never went away. But VR presents a new storytelling medium that we're only beginning to see how creators and filmmakers can take advantage of that. And a lot of people associate VR with games, and obviously that's
Right.
a huge market. My background is as a filmmaker and an engineer, so I'm particularly more interested in the narrative storytelling. So Positron builds motion chairs that go into locations like museums, existing cinemas, retail settings, even theme parks, where people can sit and experience a full immersion of being inside of the film. So it has motion, haptic, scent, as well as the VR headset. And the kind of content that we're showing are from creators that are making groundbreaking VR works at festivals like Sundance, Cannes, Tribeca. We've also worked with a lot of the Hollywood studios. We're here in LA, and so we've done content with Universal, Dreamworks, Disney made their very first commercial VR film based on the Frozen 2 franchise that was shown on our platform. So we're really excited because it's very much at the forefront. And today, very few people even know what I'm talking about if I say a VR cinema. But we hope that in 5 years, that'll be just as common as saying, "Let's go to the movies. Let's go to our local immersive cinema."
Can you tell me a little bit more about how you perceive entertainment? If a few years down the line, perhaps a different generation of entertainment, and if you were perhaps to even explain to my niece, who's 7 years old today, how you think she's going to experience cinema, as a teenager, what can we expect?
Sure. Yeah. I think what we can expect is, for your niece, for her, going to the cinema is going to be something that involves a lot more sense of all of her senses and immersion. So if you think about how movies have been about sight and sound, right? For the last ever since there was sound added to pictures, and that still can create very powerful emotional connections. We go on these like thrilling adventures in an Avengers film or are moved by drama. But imagine being inside of there, wherever you look, you feel like you're literally part of the story and you're inside the story. You're not only seeing, but you're feeling. You're feeling with your body, whether it's the flying or motion. So imagine flying on the back of a dragon and feeling the wind in your face and smelling the smell of the pine forest that you're flying over. These kind of
Incredible.
things just add to a much deeper level of immersion, which I think is very exciting. Because ultimately, a lot of storytelling is about vicariously living that experience, through the character's own experience. So for her, I think it'll be a lot of going to a place where it's not just watching a screen, but using the technology to kind of take her into this magical place.
Now, as we're transitioning there, you're mentioning Frozen 2 and you're mentioning working with Hollywood and these different studios. What does it actually take to transition from this 2D or even 3D experience and transition now into a multi-sensory, with motion chairs and virtual reality? What do you need to do as a technologist and now as an entrepreneur to make that happen?
Yeah, a lot of it is around, we're actually just kind of riding a lot of the wave of the advances in game engines, frankly. So much of even the Hollywood traditional productions are going to what we call virtual production, where you're using things like Unreal Engine from Epic Games or Unity. And these are the same tools that we use for creating a lot of VR experiences. So these sort of tools enable the creators in the studio to create essentially 3D worlds there where I can, as a director, reposition the camera, carry you through, and take you into this world. A good example is when we worked with DreamWorks on the How to Train Your Dragon VR experience. A lot of the digital assets of the animation already existed as 3D elements, and so we were able to bring those into VR and then design a camera path that would fly you through the adventure. And then the chair, the motion system it's a simple programming of looking at where should I turn and how should I make your body feel like you're flying. So it's a new process, but it's also building on top of so much of what companies, like Unreal or Epic Games and even Facebook, Microsoft, HP are doing in terms of as they're building out this VR technology and what lately has become called the Metaverse, of course, which is the big buzzword these days.
Now, is this instead of the traditional way of experiencing film, or is this a different experience that I will need to decide today I want to experience one way or another way? In other words, is this sort of an evolution or a revolution?
I think I would call it a revolution in the sense that I think it's going to be an entirely new medium. That I don't believe this is going to replace traditional film entirely. The same way that, television film did not kill radio or even, podcasts, which is known today. The invention of cinema did not kill live theater. We may see potentially a diminishment in terms of audience participation and what would be the more traditional 2D films. I think there's always going to be these art forms, just like photography, right? Don't entirely go away.
Right.
So I don't see immersive films replacing traditional films, but I do see it as a revolution in terms of here's an entirely new medium. And this, if you think about this, really only happens every few, maybe hundreds of years, right? Like the last time we
Yeah.
had this evolution was the invention of the motion picture camera, right? That went from still photographs to motion pictures. Perhaps another revolution was adding sound to pictures. We're at the same cusp, which is really exciting, right? Because it's very few times in history you sort of see this tectonic shift in terms of a medium that creators can now work with.
Now, as an entrepreneur and as the leader of Positron, you're bringing this new reality. What is this like for you? I mean, what are the biggest challenges that you then need to face? Is it more of the technological challenges of simply making the adaptations? Is it more of educating the market or the consumer behavior behind this? What are you faced with?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, the challenges of we're kind of working with so many different pieces, right? The hardware component of our pods, the software system, new kinds of content, and being able to coalesce that into a unified experience. And then it's one of these things where whether it's pitching investors or the marketing, it's sometimes challenging to describe what it is without you experience it. You just have to experience it yourself. 100% of people who experience it, our system or pod, get out and go, "Oh my gosh, this is it! I get it! I've seen the future." If you don't experience it, you can see photos, you can see our website. I can try to describe it to you, but it's very, very difficult to create that sort of aha moment. So, I think part of the challenge is honestly just figuring out how do we do the marketing of this? How do we do the message? And so, part of my goal is to build as many places as possible where people can experience this type of VR film and immersive cinema. We're going to be having at least 8 locations open by the end of the year. And as more and more people get to experience it, I think then it's sort of, okay, now I get it. Creators have a way to monetize this kind of content. Consumers get something that they cannot get at home. It's not something you can just stream on your iPad. And it gives people a taste of what's to come. And from there, we would like to, scale what we're doing today.
So who's harder to educate? The investors, the cinema areas with the locations where you're going to be putting it in, the filmmakers from Hollywood, or the people that are actually going to experience the entertainment? Would you rank from like sort of the easiest to perceive this future to the hardest?
Yeah, great question. I would say in some ways it's the locations, like unless they've tried it, it's hard for them to know what they are. I think for consumers, a lot of times they seem to intuitively get it. They see a visual or we explain, and the audience and consumers are eager to experience something new, even if they don't know quite what it is yet. I would say the easiest is really the creators, filmmakers. The people who are at the forefront of working with storytelling and technology. Really do understand this. And in fact, if anything, they're challenged with how do I get this content out there? We were fortunate enough to have Steven Spielberg sit in one of our chairs, and I got to chat with him a little bit. And just seeing, he's obviously like film royalty, right? Someone I grew up as a child watching all his films, and to see him at his stage in life and age, he has completely grasped how VR works. He was the executive producer on a Jurassic World VR film that we had on our chair, and we talked a lot about the technology. And so, it's great to see that a lot of the, both young and more older creators who've been around a long time are embracing this. And really, it's just about, we're trying to bridge that gap of how to get this type of magical experience and content to the audiences.
And so now, a little bit more about you. You mentioned that you're a filmmaker and you're a writer, and, you transition to thinking more strategically in the entertainment world. What was that transition like for you? And what made you make this transition from working on a specific piece to now figuring out, okay, can we create an experience that will translate other writers' pieces into a whole new experience?
Yeah, great question. So the way that this transition happened is I had an opportunity to direct a commercial short film for Tesla, VR film. This was about 6 years ago in 2015.
Wow,
it was very early with the technology. It was like those phone gear VRs. And what I noticed was that the VR film I think turned out okay. And it was good to watch in our studio, but when we took it to locations like the Tesla stores or generally, a lot of people I found were getting a little bit nauseous or motion sick in certain scenes. They were sitting on bar stools, kind of aware there's other people around them, and I just thought that the experience was not good. And as a filmmaker creator, I was very disappointed that after all the work of making this, the way it was being exhibited or shown really was distracting, and took away from the experience. There were all these problems in terms of from motion sickness to not having a full sense of immersion. And so that kind of prompted me to say, hey, we got to figure out a way to solve this. If this is a problem for me, it's going to be a problem for everybody else trying to make VR films. So I had some experience as an engineer working with motion simulators, and I built this pod that was something that we would create as a personal VR theater. And that ended up is launching Positron. We showed that at Sundance and had Universal Studios as our first client say, hey, we want to order 20 of those for a VR film we just did with Tom Cruise from the Mummy movie. And that's kind of what launched the idea of a cinematic VR theater.
Wow. So, and how much of your time do you spend, tangibly day to day installing these locations and getting feedback on these actual experiences versus thinking strategically about, okay, how to actually get this at mass scale, and what do I need to do as the leader of this ship to get this to scale to potentially the entire US or the entire world?
Yeah, it is one of those things where I think it's all about building a great team. Finding ways to think about how do we scale this? What are the kind of people and team that we need to do this? Is where I kind of spend a lot of my time thinking. That we want to scale this. Not just in the U.S. but globally. In a lot of ways, become what IMAX was able to do for large format
Right.
cinema. We want to become that same sort of standard for VR cinema. Really, a lot of my time is spent thinking about where things are going, understanding how the VR technology continues to evolve very, very fast, keeping up with that. And then secondly, just, trying to build a great team as we go along. We've been fortunate to have a great team of people who have deep engineering backgrounds, of artists. And I think really part of what makes us successful and unique is we are combining both engineering talent and creative artistic talent together on the same team and bringing kind of that left brain and right brain thinking to our product and to how we're going to scale I believe it's going to be part of the path to our success.
So is the vision, or what would you consider a success for Positron? Is it more, feeling that you've shifted the consumer behavior, or is it more, being the one to go and make these changes both to the actual films and adapting them to these new experiences? What is sort of the KPI that you're keeping in the back of your mind, as you're running
Yeah,
this venture?
sure. I think really the KPIs that for us success were really ultimately measured by having our vision goal is 10,000 chairs around the world that are
Wow.
obviously being used all the time, right? 10,000 pods. Where from a consumer's mind, right, this is where you go see it's a distribution network. So to have that at a scale that makes sense, it's really, really building that first cinematic VR distribution network. And eventually we may be going into the home and finding ways that are not just our chairs, but digital distribution. But we think that location-based entertainment is the place to start. So having 10,000 chairs around the world, we're about 5% of the way there. So getting there, but that's the vision.
I love it. Now, if you go back a little bit in time, even middle school, elementary school, is it always about entertainment, always about storytelling? What really fascinated you growing up?
Oh yeah, great question. I think when I was very young, I was actually really fascinated by magic. So I loved magic shows. I remember for like the talent shows in elementary, middle school, I would find some magic tricks to do. Even in college, I was very interested in magic as a performing art. So the answer is yes. I think there was that aspect of entertainment. And I also always loved writing. I grew up reading a lot of literature, started writing some of my own stories, some poetry, and then later on some screenplays. And so I think the power of story to move us and transform us. But also, there's something about magic when done right is just creates that sense of awe and wonder of something that the world is more than my own small world. It kind of opens up people to I think it opens their hearts and minds in ways that is very unique. And so I think maybe that was some of the beginnings of wanting other people to experience that same sense of awe and wonder that I would feel when either seeing some magic or being enraptured in a story is in some ways what I'm still trying to do today.
I love it. And if you look today, what you do day to day, more broadly, where do you get your inspiration from? And obviously, the grand vision is very inspiring on its own, but
Right.
where do you draw the simple day to day inspiration for what you do?
Yeah, great question. It really is around where I draw inspiration is from art, good art, good storytelling. So
Really?
I make it a point every week, and it doesn't have to be VR, right? But I do watch a lot of VR content. I find it incredibly inspiring. We're watching some of the latest works from Venice Film Festival. Every year, the creative works gets better and better. This is something that most consumers don't get to see, and this is part of why I'm passionate, like
Right.
bringing this to a bigger audience. But sometimes for me, it's also, I read a lot of poetry, and I find inspiration in poetry as well as visual arts. Sitting with that and kind of that letting someone else's vision or something they were trying to say have moved me and I just find that that's part of really what makes us uniquely human, right? Is the ability to create art. So.
And so as you're, working with your team, what do you find, both most rewarding and perhaps challenging leading a team, in this vision? Because this is not an ordinary startup.
Right. I think what I find most rewarding is to see on the team different people from different backgrounds, and we have a very diverse team, both in terms of background and just both professionally and personally, where people come from, and seeing the very rewarding part is seeing this all come together behind a vision. Right. When we go to, for example, a new VR theater we've installed, and we're watching people walk in and they don't know that we're necessarily part of Positron, right? And seeing the look on their faces when they come off and talk about it, it's seeing that team come together. I think the challenging part is, these, particularly right now in these times, is, as you probably know, it's finding great talent, attracting is more challenging than it's been in the past. The pandemic has made a lot of people, choose alternate careers or look for other things to do. So finding ways to continue building our team sometimes can be challenging, just because we're working with hardware, and so it's not so easy for us to have a remote work team. You have teams who, hey, I can work from anywhere in the world. Some of the roles we have, you can work from anywhere, but some of the roles really have to be here on the ground. And so I find that that's a bit challenging for us, is that we're a more traditional in-person office for the most part.
And what are a few words that you would use to describe yourself?
Oh, good question. I would say words to describe myself: creative, hopeful, and I would say ambitious. So,
Jeffrey, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. Best of luck with Positron. I can't wait to see it and experience it myself. I can only think of the future. I'm excited for this next generation of entertainment. And I'm really happy to have spoken to one of the pioneers of it and people that are pushing it forward, and then hopefully sit in one of your chairs one day. So thank you very, very much. And stay safe and stay healthy.